Hello everyone, this is eXish, and welcome to part 1 of the Making a Module tutorial series. Whether you're here just because you're curious about how modules are made, or if you actually want to make one, doesn't matter, I'm sure that this will still be entertaining and definitely worthwhile watching, especially if you want to get into modding at some point, or even just learn about coding in general, because there's going to be a lot of coding in this at some point, and in various different languages too. So, and by various different languages, I mean ones that are very different from each other. So, we're going to get right into it here. Part 1 is going to be all about the necessary tools that you are going to need to start making a Keep Talking Nobody Explodes module. And the other thing we're going to cover right after that is brainstorming for an idea for a module. Because the first little portion we're going to be going with is the manual section. If you haven't played the game before, it's basically you have one person do on a manual that has all the information on how to solve a module on a bomb, and the bomb is held by the diffuser, which the expert cannot see, and likewise the reverse, the diffuser can't see the manual. So it's basically supposed to be a teamwork game where you need to be able to communicate with each other to be able to solve the module. So the first bit we're going to be covering is that expert component, the manual that the expert is going to see. So we need to come up with the full idea and lay it out first before we actually get to modeling and coding the module itself. So, what we're going to do first, however, though, the very first thing you need to do is you need to get all the necessary tools. And very quickly before we get into that, I'd like to say if there is at any point where in this tutorial series you do not understand something, or I do not cover something in the tutorial and then you try doing it yourself, it still doesn't work, or if you try doing something in my tutorial and that still doesn't work, then it's going to be highly recommended that you go to the Keep Talking Nobody Explodes Discord. The Discord for that is right here, the official server. You should be able to look it up and find it. We're all very welcoming here. The section you're going to want to reference if you have these sort of problems is this modding section down here. You can, of course, come in here to just play Keep Talking Nobody Explodes normally, but where you're going to want to ask questions is in modding here. And if you ever do have a question for a modder of some kind, you can always ping them just like this. As I am a modder, this message was highlighted for me because this modder had a question. So that is where you can go if you have any problems there. And once your module's actually released, this is where people will most likely post bug reports. There is a whole nother side of this, but of course I'm going to be talking about that way later in an extras video, and that's the Twitch Plays side of it. We'll talk about Twitch Plays in an extras video where we add Twitch Plays support to this module that I'm going to be developing during this tutorial series. And by the way, this main series is going to be about all the basics you need. I'm not going to be covering any of the special supports or things like that you can add, like gamepad support, controller support, Twitch plays, souvenir, stuff like that. I'm not going to be covering all those different kinds of supports. Those are all going to be in an extra video that I'm going to add after. This is just going to be to make a module in general. All you need to make the basic module. So, other than that, we also have this whole section here that I should mention that has all these useful links to all the different things you could need, things for making models for your module, other tutorial videos that exist, and a bunch of different other things that most likely have already been asked by other people that have answers. So these are all very useful things that you're going to want to look over as well if I do not mention them. So, now that I've covered the Discord, very first things first, you're definitely going to need the game itself. So you definitely need a Steam account and you're going to need the game. The game's $15 normally. It's overwhelmingly positive at the moment, which is awesome. I hadn't even checked the status of it in a while. But I don't know whether it's possible to upload to the Steam Workshop for Keep Talking Nobody Explodes if you don't have the game. I have no idea. It might be possible to do it with not having Keep Talking Nobody Explodes installed. However, I would highly recommend that you get the game anyways, because you're going to want to be able to test the module in-game to make sure that it works the way that you'd like in the actual environment that you like, instead of just in Unity, because Unity is going to be the thing that we're going to be kind of testing the entire module in and making it in. So that brings us now to the first bit of necessary tools you're going to need for this. So We've got all these things up here. First things first is Unity. So again, this will be the thing that we will use to essentially, it'll be the kind of game maker that we use to make the module. We'll develop the entire model of the module in it, and then we're going to also have the coding linked to it so that we can actually play test it in Unity as well. So there's a specific version that you're going to need for this. So the version that you're going to need, I got to this link from the Getting Started page on the wiki of the official repository for the Keep Talking mod kit. This is something we'll cover next. But if you go to this easier link to get than this here, you go to wiki. This has everything, like another whole little worded tutorial on how to get started and everything. Go to Getting Started, and I got to this link here through this. This is the version that you're going to want. 2017.4.22 F1. That is the Unity version that they made this in and that you're going to want to make sure you use because they can't confirm that it works on any other one. So may as well go with the one that's supported, right? So I'll just head back there for now. So once you do that, you should be placed right here, unless of course you look it up differently, which is fine. But if you do it this way and go here, you have to go to the second page, and here it is. It'll have every single different thing you could use for it here. What I would do, of course, since I have Windows, is I'd click this and I would download it through Windows. If you have Mac, you'd do that. So basically, you'll just get it through this and then start installing that. And that'll be how you get Unity. And then we'll move on to this, which is probably where I should have started. The Keep Talking mod kit. This is where all the magic happens. All the base for Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes mods are based off of this. And you're going to need it to basically start making your mod in the first place. So to get this, you are going to essentially just need to either find out how Git works, or you can get GitHub Desktop. I like using GitHub Desktop because it's a little bit easier to kind of view. To get GitHub Desktop, you can literally just Google GitHub Desktop and then install it there. You're going to need a Google account a GitHub account as well, because at some point you're actually going to have to upload the source code of your module, especially if you want other people to help you out with stuff that you don't know how to do, or if something ever happens to you and we want to keep your mod in great shape and condition. We don't want to think about that, of course, but it's always the best to do that and make your code public. So, and that's exactly what's going on here, is the base for all the modding. It's basically the template for everything. So once you have GitHub Desktop, you can just click the code aspect here, and you can see open with GitHub Desktop. If you don't want to use GitHub Desktop at first, I will cover it later with the whole uploading your source code and everything when we get to the publishing portion. But if you don't want to, of course, you can just download the zip. That's also fine. But if you already know GitHub and you already have it, you may as well just get it on GitHub Desktop anyways. So then once you have that, you should just store it somewhere. I have the newest version stored right here because whenever I help other people's modules, if they don't have the latest version of the mod kit, I like to try and update it to that. And I believe actually this is the zipped version. I don't think I have GitHub Desktop yet. I haven't even downloaded it through it. It might be better to do it zip. Basically choose whatever you prefer. Next thing is Visual Studio. This is going to be very useful for the coding. We're going to code everything in this. So this is the community version. If you just look up Visual Studio Community, this is the first link. You go to download and it'll start downloading it, and there'll be a whole bunch of stuff links on the side there. One of them saying instructions on to continue installing, a whole video on it and whatnot. So you should be able to get Visual Studio very easily from that. And I believe this will be the 2019 version, which is what I use, so you're probably going to want that. Next thing is going to be used for essentially making the manual, and it can also be used for coding. Keep in mind that this is very useful for coding because it's a text editor that will link with Unity and will actually point out what you can, use in your code and what errors exist, what syntax problems you have. So basically, if there's any formatting problems, it'll detect it and notify you and say, hey, you should probably look at this, which is very helpful. Very, very helpful. Something like Notepad++, which is what we're going to use for the manual here, that does not really point out much to you. However, it does still format it by color code. You can technically use what's installed by default on your system, which is Notepad, but everything will just be in black. All the text will be in black. It won't color code it for you or anything like that. It won't automatically tab for you the way that you'd like. You gotta basically, you gotta be very specific with this. Notepad++ is a lot better because it has a lot more features to it. I don't even use all the features to it. However, I just like using it over regular Notepad because of all the color coding. So I would highly recommend you get this, but you do not have to. As long as you have some sort of text editor of some kind, you'll be able to make the manual. So, and you'll just, go here if you want to get the latest version of Notepad++. So, now we go to Inkscape, another thing for the manual. This will be used to draw that little icon for the manual if you've ever played the game before. Let me just look up. Memory. This is a module from the vanilla game. That's essentially this icon in the top right here. It's a kind of black and white image, or a very basic top-down view image of the module itself. That is exactly what it's supposed to be. So it'll essentially help you kind of brainstorm what your module should look like when you get to actually modeling it, which is why that's very useful. For the people who actually make the module first and then this, which we call an SVG, it's what this icon is. It's going to be, it might not be as great as you want it to, or it's basically supposed to help you lay out the foundations for when you make it. So doing it in reverse, I don't know why you'd do that, but I guess whatever suits the modder. But you'll need this program to do that. You just go to normal Inkscape, then go to download current version, and you can download for all different platforms here. Next thing is optional, because you technically don't need it to make a mod. However, it is useful for making custom models for your module. So this would be Blender. I use Blender 2.79. You can use Blender 2.79 A or B. You just click this one here to get it. It should work. I had some problems with it a while ago because of a corrupt preferences file, but I've looked up online. There's many different articles on that already on how to fix that and whatnot, and it definitely helped me fix it because for some reason it just broke on me one day, wouldn't open properly. So this will be used to make all the custom models. Say you want a button that's a hexagon. In Unity, you cannot create a hexagon object, so therefore, in order to do that the best way you can, you create a custom hexagon model in Blender and then export that as an object and then use it in Unity and just place it down on your module. That's basically what it's going to help you do, is create all those different custom things that you'll see. You'll see on a bunch of different modules, there are so many different cool looking models that people have made for these things. An example of one of my own is Roman art. I did get it from online, however, I did have to use Blender to touch things up a little bit, where I got custom pillars for the sides on Roman art to make it look even more Roman themed, which is absolutely great. So you'll see that on a bunch of different other people's modules. However, because you don't technically need it to make all things like buttons on the module or basically anything, it's not required. But I definitely recommend it if you want to make some custom models. And that's pretty much all the necessary tools that you are going to need to start making your mods. So once you have all those things installed, we should be good to start going. What we'll do now is we'll now cover the kind of brainstorming process. And I'm just going to open up this here because this is where we store all the manuals for every module that has been made that is currently being maintained online, so people can access them online in a very easier fashion and access everything about these modules as well. There's a reason why I have this open, And you may be wondering, why do you have this open in the brainstorming phase then? Well, I already know what module I want to make, and I know that it's not going to violate this. You want to make sure when you're creating a module, say you don't have a module idea. If you don't have if you have a module idea and you just want to get right to making the manual, go to the next video, because this is just going to be talking about if you don't have a module idea but you really want to make a module, this should hopefully help you out a little bit with that. So, you do not want to the best of your ability, try to make a module that already has an idea that exists. Now, with over 800 modules, that can be kind of hard to do to avoid copying something exactly. However, all these people have somehow found a way around that. And, some of them are very, very close to each other, but there are a lot that are super unique. So you've got to find some idea that does not already exist. If you come up with an idea and then it ends up being one that exists and you checked as many as you can and you're like, I can't, there's no possible way I could check all of these. There are people in this community who know absolutely every module. So you can just post your idea, like go back to the Discord, of course, and just go in modding or KTANE discussion even, and just ask, is there any module that exists that has this sort of idea to it? You could probably even post it in mod ideas. I'm not exactly certain where you would post it, but you definitely post it in one of those 3 channels. I'm not sure which one though. So, once you figure out if your idea is perfectly unique, perfectly fine as an idea, now that I'm thinking about it, now that I just said it in that wording, it's probably best to post that in the mod ideas channel. But once you have that, great. Then it's good to go. But if you're stuck and you want to come up with an idea, here's a couple things and a couple examples of things that people have made so you can get an idea. 1D maze is a very simple idea. We can cover that real quick. There's edge work on these bombs, and a lot of these modules will require you to note down the edge work and then use it on the module itself in the rules. So for 1D maze, it has 3 buttons, so an LED in the middle, and 2 arrow buttons, one up top and one on bottom. And the maze is literally one-dimensional. You go up to move 1 up in the maze, and you move down to move 1 down in the maze. And the only indication of where you are is the LED will turn white or black depending on which space you're in. And the maze essentially goes in this sort of format here, as you can see, going from top to bottom, and then it flips around to this, and it keeps going. And if you get to here, per se, it loops back around to this, and that's basically the maze. But you'll see that each row here has a number on it. You have to try navigating to the last digit of the serial number anywhere in the maze. So essentially scroll up and down multiple times to kind of figure out the pattern of black and whites, to figure out where you are, and then go up or down the certain number of times to get to the last digit of the serial number. And the last digit is the serial number itself is just a 6-digit code on the bomb, which is a 6-character code on the bomb with letters and digits. And that is one idea of a module that someone has come up with. So you can make a module that involves some sort of maze, like someone did here. It could be an even bigger maze, like there's a lot of different maze modules that exist. For example, if you want to look at the original maze that's in the vanilla game, all these different mazes exist. So mazes are sort of an idea if you want to think about that. There's just plain old buttons, right? There's just modules that just involve buttons. For example, Morse buttons here. This one combines the Morse kind of idea from the original game with the Morse code module with just straight up buttons, like press these buttons in a specific order. Those are kind of things that exist. There's submitting a code of some kind, like maybe a 3-digit number using a keypad. Examples of this would be like equations, for example. Any of the equation modules, really. There's a whole bunch of different things you could come up with. And then there's some very unique ideas out there. Ones that just people could never even imagine. For example, the Jewel Vault, where you literally have to line up 4 different color jewels on the wheel in a certain direction, um, depending on orientation. That's a really cool one. The model for this one's absolutely awesome. If we're thinking about some other ideas, not to make myself feel great or anything, but I did release a module recently called One Links to All, where you have to input a path between 2 Wikipedia articles. That's something that nobody has touched before. Like thinking about, oh my god, you actually have to go to Wikipedia and find a link through only the hyperlinks on each page from one article to the next. This one's given me a lot of trouble because it's been an absolute pain to code and deal with, but the fact that I was able to, make it decently work as a module is just insane in itself. So, there's all these different ideas that exist. And if you just need any kind of idea to pop into your head, hopefully I've helped you a little bit with that by just mentioning some of these different things that people have done. But and math is another thing that's included in a lot of modules as well. Forgot to mention that. But you can just scroll through all these different modules, click on all these different manuals, and just start looking at them. Just read them over. Maybe it'll inspire you. You might want to make your own take on one of these. For example, there's cool versions of modules that exist. If you want to start off by making a module, like a different variant of a module that already exists, that's totally fine. Just come up with something that's a little bit different for it, of course. You don't want to make something that does exist already. And of course, you're going to want to contact the author of that as well, just to make sure that you have permission from them to make that variant, right? But if you come up with your own idea too, that is perfectly fine. So, anyways, hopefully you've that's enough to kind of help you come up with an idea there, and hopefully you now have an idea, or you are going to develop it, and then once you have it ready, move on to the next video, and we will start working on making the manual so you can write down this idea and not forget it. All right. So thank you all for watching the part 1 for this video. Hope it was helpful enough. I'm eXish, and I'll see you all later. Bye-bye.